The Writers Guild and Hollywood studios are set to resume negotiations today. Screenwriters have now been on strike for more than 4 months, crippling much of the industry. Meg James, a senior entertainment writer for LA Times, spoke with CBS News Primetime last night ahead of the renewed negotiations.
The studios have tremendous leverage. They obviously are the ones that write the checks, but the writers have really held out longer than people than expected. They have displayed remarkable solidarity. As they resume talks, which will happen tomorrow, it will be incumbent for both sides to try to sort of find a middle ground. Everyone is just exhausted, John. People have been tired of being out of work for 5 months. People's tensions are high. People are worried that they're not going to be able to afford their homes, their kids' school payments. And so people really want this to be over.
American workers across multiple industries are on strike, as you know, but are their efforts having an impact? According to the U.S. Labor Department, stoppages from the strikes have resulted in about 4.1 million missed days of work last month, the largest monthly total in 23 years. For more on this, let's bring in Kate Bronfenbrenner. She is the Director of Labor Education Research and a senior lecturer at Cornell University School of Industrial and Labor Relations. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor.
Good morning.
So what has been fueling, I think the big question for a lot of people is, what has been fueling this recent rise in strikes?
Near strikes.
And near strikes,
like
exactly.
The rail
They're
workers,
happening
UPS.
with increasing frequency across the country.
American workers are angry and frustrated. They feel like they sacrificed in the recession of 2007, 2008. They risked their lives during the pandemic, and their wages have stagnated or declined. Their working conditions have not improved. They're working longer and harder for less. And they feel at the same time that corporate officers and investors have been making huge profits. And so the gap between what workers make and their bosses make has widened to a degree that it's even hard to even measure. They see the number of zeros after their CEO's compensation package, and they can't even conceive of that much money. So that there's that frustration. And also we have younger workers who feel like their future is really in doubt, from climate change to college debt to guns and reproductive rights. They are particularly frustrated and angry, and they are leading this wave of organizing and strikes.
Okay, so then what sectors are we seeing being impacted the most? Are they the sectors where this gap is the most evident?
The interesting thing is that strikes are happening in every sector of the economy, from retail to transportation to manufacturing to healthcare, entertainment industry. We're seeing strikes across the board. And of course, most workplaces are smaller than 1,000 workers. The Labor Department numbers only count those that are over 1,000, but we see a dramatic increase in strikes in the last 3 years in literally every occupation and sector.
Can you speak to how the United Auto Workers strike differs from the other ones we've been seeing, for example?
The auto workers is a very large strike. There's also a union that has not gone on strike, has not had a recent history of strikes, so that this is being watched because it's such a big industry that everybody knows about. But they're also using a different strategy. Rather than pulling everybody out on strike, they're doing what's called a rolling strike or an intermittent strike, where they're keeping the company guessing where they're going to strike next, and where they're able to save their resources so that for the long haul, so they don't have to use all the strike fund all at once. It's a very effective strategy, but much more difficult to organize and operate, because you have to make sure to pull the people out where you want to pull them out and put them back in when you want to pull them back in.
So as you know, when there is a strike, there are impacts sort of both ways. Obviously, there's an economic impact personally for those who are striking. They're not making money, or an industry may be shut down or slowed. But then once they go back to the negotiating table, there's another impact, right? Depending on what kind of deal they're able to hammer out. So are these strikes worthwhile? Are they working for the American worker?
Well, the interesting thing about strikes is they're always about more than money. They're about building power and solidarity. and inspiring other workers. And so when you see a strike, national strike like this happen, you see more workers organizing, and and workers are organizing about far more than money. So you see improvements in conditions, improvements in rights, improvements in people feel they have more control over work, they're happier in their jobs. So and employers are less likely to cut wages and cut benefits and treat workers badly because they see that the strike threat is real. So strikes build power for workers.
We're also seeing a rise in employees wanting to unionize, such as Starbucks. We've even seen it in the media industry, specifically newspapers. What other sectors are you looking at?
We're seeing a rise in organizing in retail across the board. Our REI, Trader Joe's, companies that hadn't been organized in the past. We see organizing in nonprofits such as museums and arts, and then we see a rise in organizing in higher ed. Large units of graduate students, adjuncts across the country in both the private and public sector are organizing, and they're winning big with 97% of the vote. It's many of these elections.
That's really fascinating. It'd be fascinating to see, to have this conversation with you in, say, another 10 years to see what the widespread impact is. Kate Bronfenbrenner, thank you so much.
Thank you.